The Vanishing Act. The morning sun, a pale, reluctant disk in the Yorkshire sky, cast long, watery shadows across Mrs. Higgins's prize-winning petunias. It was the kind of crisp, quiet dawn that promised a gentle day, a perfect backdrop for the antics of Pip. Pip, a Yorkshire terrier of impeccable lineage and boundless energy, was a tiny whirlwind of tawny fur and audacious personality, a fluffy exclamation point in the meticulously maintained symphony of Mrs. Higgins's garden. He was no bigger than a teacup, and every playful nip, every enthusiastic sniff at a dew-kissed blade of grass, was a testament to the sheer, unadulterated joy of being Pip. Mrs. Higgins had named him with the delicate precision of a master gardener choosing a rare orchid. Pip, a sound as light and airy as his playful nips, a perfect counterpoint to the more formal Mr. Reginald Higgins that was often directed at her late, much-missed husband. This particular morning, Pip was engaged in a grand battle with a fallen oak leaf, a valiant knight against a formidable, crinkled dragon. He pounced, he growled, he shook his head with mock ferocity, his little tail a blur of happy motion. Mrs. Higgins watched from the kitchen window, a contented smile softening the usual precise lines of her face as she sipped her Earl Grey. The scene was idyllic, a painted tableau of peace and domestic harmony. Then came the silence. It wasn't a sudden, jarring silence, but a creeping, insidious void where the joyful yaps and scuffles of Pip had been. Mrs. Higgins frowned, her smile dissolving. Pip wasn't one to simply sit still for long. Her gentle Pip, darling, where are you, turned quickly to a more urgent, then frantic, Pip, answer me. Her voice, usually modulated to a polite murmur, rose with a disquieting edge. Her heart, a sedate, well-behaved organ, began to hammer against her ribs with a panicked insistence. She dropped her teacup, the ceramic clinking softly against the saucer as she moved, her movements becoming less graceful, more desperate. She went outside, her slippers sinking slightly into the damp lawn. The manicured perfection of her garden, usually a source of immense pride, now offered no comfort, no clue to the whereabouts of her beloved companion. Every rose bush, every carefully pruned shrub, every patch of manicured lawn, seemed to mock her with its silent, unhelpful beauty. She circled the familiar paths, her eyes scanning every shadow, every hidden nook. Pip, please, Pip. The sun, once a harbinger of a gentle day, now seemed to mock her with its indifferent assent, illuminating nothing of consequence. Her frantic shouts echoed in the quiet garden, an increasingly desperate plea. A cold dread, a prickling sensation on her skin, began to settle over her. Pip was more than just a pet, he was a companion, a furry confidant, a small, vibrant piece of her world that now seemed to have simply vanished. Then, near the gnarled, ancient roots of the old oak tree, a sentinel that had witnessed generations of Higginses come and go, she saw it. A dark, unassuming hole, almost swallowed by the convoluted sprawl of the roots, a mere indentation in the earth that might have been easily overlooked. It was small, no wider than her outstretched hand, and seemed to breathe a faint, chill air. A sound, almost imperceptible, drifted up from the darkness. A faint, choked whimper. Not the robust, playful yelp of a happy puppy, but a fragile, gasping sound, barely audible. It was a sound that twisted Mrs. Higgins's heart into a knot of agonizing certainty. Panic clawed at her throat, a physical sensation that threatened to choke off her breath. She dropped to her knees. A race against time. Mrs. Higgins scrambled for her phone, her fingers, usually so nimble with knitting needles and delicate china, fumbling clumsily with the sleek surface of the screen. Her mind, a whirlwind of fear and desperation, struggled to recall the number for the local animal rescue. It was a number she'd tucked away, just in case, never truly imagining she'd need it. She finally connected, her voice trembling, a fragile reed in a storm, as she explained the horrific situation. Each word felt like pulling teeth, heavy with the weight of Pip's fading whimpers. He's in a hole, a deep one. I can barely hear him. She choked out, fighting back the rising tide of tears. The calm, reassuring voice on the other end, belonging to a young woman named Sarah, offered a sliver of hope, a fragile lifeline in the vast ocean of her despair. We're on our way, ma'am. Stay calm. Don't try to go in after him. 20 agonizing minutes crawled by, each second stretching into an eternity, marked by the frantic beating of Mrs. Higgins's heart. The sun, once a gentle presence, now seemed to dip lower with cruel indifference, casting long, ominous shadows that stretched like grasping fingers across the lawn. The air, initially crisp, grew heavy with unspoken fears, the quiet of the garden now a suffocating shroud. Mrs. Higgins hovered by the hole, straining to hear any sound from Pip, but the whimpers had ceased. Only the unsettling silence of the earth remained, punctuated by the frantic chirping of unseen birds in the oak tree. Was he gone? Had she been too slow? Then, a vehicle pulled up the gravel drive, its tires crunching softly. 2 figures emerged, moving with a purposeful urgency that offered a glimmer of reassurance. One was Sarah, the young woman from the phone call, her face kind but serious, her eyes immediately scanning the garden. The other was a burly man, perhaps in his late 40s or early 50s, with powerful shoulders and hands that looked accustomed to hard work. This was Mark, the rescue team's seasoned veteran. They carried an array of equipment, shovels gleaming dully in the fading light, coils of sturdy rope, and a large, padded animal carrier. Mrs. Higgins? Sarah asked, her voice calm and steady, a balm to Mrs. Higgins's frayed nerves. Yes? Oh, thank heavens you're here. Mrs. Higgins gestured frantically towards the hole. He's in there? Pip? My little Pip. Sarah knelt by the hole, her expression grim as she shone a powerful, narrow beam of light into the inky blackness. The flashlight cut through the gloom, illuminating a terrifying sight. Pip was there, at least 6 feet down, possibly more. He lay on his side, a tiny, crumpled bundle of tawny fur amidst loose soil and jagged stones. He was utterly still, his little chest barely rising and falling, a horrifyingly slow, shallow breath. His eyes, usually bright with mischief, were closed. Looks like an old rabbit hole that's collapsed, Mark muttered, his voice low and grave as he assessed the crumbling, unstable edges of the opening. He prodded the surrounding earth with the toe of his boot, a ripple of loose soil cascading into the abyss. We need to be extremely careful. Any more movement up here could bring down more of the tunnel. The air was thick with unspoken tension, a palpable weight pressing down on them all. Time was slipping away, each tick of an imaginary clock a cruel reminder of Pip's precarious state. Sarah, her brow furrowed in concentration, began to uncoil a length of soft, broad webbing, expertly fashioning a makeshift harness. She spoke softly, her voice a soothing drone, as if trying to coax the fragile life from the depths. Pip? Can you hear me, little one? For a heart-stopping moment, there was no response. Then, a barely perceptible tremor. A faint flicker of his tiny, dirt-caked tail. It was so small, so weak, it might have been imagined. But to Mrs. Higgins, it was a spark, a fragile but fierce flame of hope igniting in her chest, pushing back against the encroaching darkness of despair. He was still fighting. They had to fight for him. The crumble and the cough. The air hung heavy, thick with the unspoken tension that gripped them all. Sarah, her brow furrowed in concentration, meticulously maneuvered the makeshift harness. Her voice, a low, soothing murmur, was directed at the tiny, unmoving form far below. Just a little more, Pip. That's it, little one. Mrs. Higgins held her breath, her gaze fixed on the hole, willing the tiny puppy to somehow understand, to help. Mark, ever vigilant, stood ready, a safety rope around Sarah's waist, his powerful hands poised to react to any sudden shift in the unstable earth. This was it, the first dramatic scene, the moment where hope teetered on a knife edge. As Sarah gently, painstakingly, tried to guide the soft webbing of the harness around Pip's motionless body, a tremor ran through the ground. It was subtle at first, a barely perceptible shudder, then a sickening groan from the earth itself. A shower of dirt and pebbles, like a sinister rain, suddenly rained down from the edges of the hole. "Sarah, look out!" Mark's yell ripped through the strained silence, a raw, urgent command. He reacted instantly, a blur of motion, pulling Sarah back with a powerful tug on the safety rope. It happened in a horrifying, slow-motion blur. Just as Sarah was yanked away, a larger section of the hole's rim, weakened by time and the recent movements, gave way. A substantial chunk of earth, roots, and stones, perhaps the size of a small boulder, crumbled inward with a dull, sickening thud. For a terrifying, heart-stopping moment, Pip was completely buried. The faint, flickering light of Sarah's flashlight was extinguished by the falling debris, plunging the depths into an even blacker, more suffocating darkness. Mrs. Higgins gasped, a sharp, ragged sound torn from her throat. Her hand flew to her mouth, stifling a scream that threatened to erupt. "No, oh, no." Her voice was a choked sob, raw with anguish and despair. It couldn't be over. Not like this. Sarah, her face pale, almost ashen, but her eyes burning with a fierce, desperate resolve, didn't hesitate. She dropped to her knees, grabbing a small hand shovel from their kit. "He's still in there," she insisted, her voice tight with suppressed emotion, as if challenging fate itself. Mark, his own face grim, joined her, abandoning the shovel for his bare hands, his powerful fingers sifting through the loose soil with surprising gentleness, yet frantic speed. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the frantic scratching of their shovels and hands against the earth, and Mrs. Higgins's choked, heartbroken sobs. Every second felt like an eternity, a race against the grim finality of the earth. Dust plumed around them, coating their faces and clothes. The air grew heavy with the scent of damp soil and desperation. They dug with a shared, unspoken intensity, a furious prayer in motion. Mrs. Higgins knelt beside them, useless, agonizingly helpless, her gaze fixed on the spot where her little Pip had disappeared, willing him, with every fiber of her being, to still be there. Then, just as the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of bruised purple and orange, Sarah's hand, caked in mud, brushed against something soft and furry. Her breath hitched. "I've got him?" she gasped, her voice thick with relief, a fragile exhalation of hope. With infinite care, she cleared the remaining soil, her movements deliberate and tender, as if handling the most delicate of treasures. Slowly, gently, she lifted Pip from his earthy tomb. He was limp, covered in dirt, a tiny, miserable bundle of matted fur. His body felt impossibly fragile in her hands, life almost extinguished, a flickering candle flame on the verge of being snuffed out. There was no movement, no whimper, just the heartbreaking stillness of near death. Mrs. Higgins leaned forward, her heart frozen in her chest, dread consuming her. This was the second dramatic scene, a breathtaking moment of desperate hope. Sarah cradled Pip close, pressing his tiny, dirt-streaked body against her chest, offering what little warmth she could. She leaned her ear to his chest, listening with agonizing intensity. The moments stretched into an eternity, an unbearable silence broken only by the frantic beat of Mrs. Higgins's own heart. Had they been too late? Had the collapse stolen his last breath? Then, a tiny, almost imperceptible cough. It was weak, fragile. The embrace of hope. With Pip safely, miraculously, in Sarah's trembling hands, a wave of profound relief washed over Mrs. Higgins, so powerful it almost buckled her knees. Sarah, despite the exhaustion etched on her face, held the tiny puppy with an almost reverent tenderness, her ear still occasionally pressed to his chest, listening for the steady, reassuring thump of his tiny heart. Mark, meanwhile, was already at work on the hole. With practiced efficiency, he secured a thick, sturdy rope to the robust trunk of the ancient oak. He then carefully, expertly, climbed down into the widened opening, his movements precise, almost surgical, as he cleared away any further loose debris and shored up the edges to prevent another collapse. The methodical sounds of his work were a comforting counterpoint to the earlier chaos, a steady rhythm of rescue and restoration. Back at the surface, Mrs. Higgins hovered, her gaze never leaving Pip. He was still weak, a miniature shadow of his former boisterous self, but he was breathing. His little body, once stiff with impending stillness, now gave a faint, almost imperceptible shiver. Sarah, seeing the raw emotion on Mrs. Higgins's face, gently extended Pip towards her. Mrs. Higgins reached out, her touch feather-light, as if afraid he might dissolve at too much pressure. She carefully took him into her arms, cradling him against her chest. He was caked in dirt, his fur matted, but to her, he was the most beautiful creature she had ever seen. Tears, hot and silent, streamed down her face as she buried her nose in his soft fur, whispering words of comfort, of gratitude, of overwhelming love. "Oh, Pip, my darling Pip," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "You're safe now. You're safe." The journey to the local animal rescue center was a blur of hushed conversations and gentle handling. The vet, a kind-faced woman with calm, knowing eyes, immediately took charge. Pip was carefully examined, his tiny body a testament to resilience. He was severely dehydrated, in shock, and terribly weak, but miraculously, he had sustained no serious injuries. No broken bones, no internal trauma from the collapse. It was nothing short of a miracle. He was given fluids, carefully cleaned, and wrapped in a warm, soft blanket. Slowly, ever so slowly, he began to respond, his eyes blinking with increasing focus, his tiny tail giving the weakest, most tentative of wags. Each tiny movement was a monumental victory, a clear sign of his will to live. A week later, the transformation was remarkable. A fully recovered Pip, his fur once again fluffy and vibrant, was back in Mrs. Higgins's perfectly manicured garden. The small, treacherous hole by the oak tree had been filled in, the earth leveled and seeded, a silent, almost invisible reminder of his terrifying near-death experience. But Pip bore no scars, no fear of the ground. He was once again a whirlwind of boundless energy, chasing butterflies with renewed vigor, his barks echoing with pure, unadulterated joy. He still had his favorite spot by the old oak, but now he only chased leaves on solid ground. Mrs. Higgins watched him, a profound sense of peace settling over her. Her heart, once gripped by terror, now overflowed with love and gratitude. The bond between them, once strong, was now unbreakable, forged in the crucible of fear and cemented by a truly miraculous rescue. This tiny puppy, pulled from the brink of oblivion, was a living, breathing testament to hope, to resilience, and to the unwavering compassion of those who wouldn't give up. This heartwarming story, a small spark of light in a sometimes dark world, is a powerful reminder of the preciousness of every life, no matter how small. It highlights the incredible dedication of animal rescuers who tirelessly work to give creatures like Pip a second chance. Stories like Pip's happen every single day. Countless animals are in desperate situations, waiting for a kind hand, a brave heart, and the resources to save them. If Pip's story touched your heart, please consider how you can help. Your support, no matter how small, can make a monumental difference. 1. Donate. Animal rescues rely on donations to fund their life-saving operations, medical care, and rehabilitation. Even a small contribution can help purchase vital supplies or provide a day's worth of food. 2. Volunteer. If you have time, consider volunteering at your local animal shelter or rescue organization. They always need help with everything from cleaning kennels to walking dogs or assisting with adoption events. 3. Adopt. Don't shop. If you're looking to bring a new companion into your home, please consider adopting from a shelter or rescue. You'll be giving a deserving animal a loving home and freeing up space for another in need. 4. Share stories. Spread awareness by sharing heartwarming rescue stories like Pip's on your social media. The more people who are aware, the more support these organizations can receive. Let Pip's journey inspire you to be a part of the solution. Every act of kindness, every moment of compassion, contributes to a world where every Pip gets their chance to thrive. Remember to subscribe and share my channel The Real Furry Stories if you love tales of amazing animal rescues and want to hear more heartwarming stories like Pip's. Goodbye, see you.